Hello and welcome to Walk the Cinema podcast. Today we are joined by a guest and Pete from Middle Class Film Class, and we're going to be talking about Annihilation. So
Yeah.
we're here with Pete.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for listening, whoever's listening right now.
Hopefully a lot of people.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So you can tell our listeners about your show if you want.
Sure. So the show's called Middle Class Film Class. If basically we're a weekly movie news and review show. We release twice a week. It's about an hour long each episode. And every Monday it's Gab and Chatter, which is just talking about this week's movie news, interesting upcoming projects we're excited about, discussion topics. Every once in a while we'll have some interesting people to interview. We've had, are you guys familiar with The Greasy Strangler, the movie?
No.
It is something. It's like a ultra wild, obscure B movie about an old man that covers himself with grease and murders people. And
That sounds very fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a great time.
it's like Tim and Eric on crack. And we got the actor that plays the Greasy Strangler, Michael St. Michael, to come on the show and do a little interview segment and stuff. So we'll get little people like that from here and then to come on and do little call-in segments and trivia and whatever is fun. And then on Wednesdays we do one deep dive review into a movie that we choose at random between the three of us. And then we on our wheel, our random movie wheel, we call it the Wheel of Destiny, is fan picks. So if you are listening and you want us to review one of your movies, you just write in, you add it to the fan list, we do your movie. So it's a lot of fun. And what makes us a little different than other shows is that we record everything essentially live to tape, where we don't really edit anything. All the sound effects go in live, intro music, outro music, segment intros and things like that, sound effects, drops, all that goes in live. And we treat it essentially like we're doing a radio show. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned random movies, but this movie's not random. You picked it and you're very excited from what I can tell.
Yes, I love Annihilation. This is, for one, it's Alex Garland's follow-up to Ex Machina, which is his first officially directed movie. He also directed Dread, the Carl Urban movie, though he's not credited for it. Pete Travis directed Dread, and essentially is a director in name only. The studio took away all rights from him. Alex Garland, by all reports, including Carl Urban, he directed Dread. He also wrote that movie, and then he wrote and directed Ex Machina, and adapted and directed Annihilation from the Southern Reach series, like a SCP Protocol series. So this movie was one that I was excited about from the beginning because Garland is he's like a young filmmaker that is doing, I mean, he's checking every box in my opinion. Everything he does, it just hits just right. Devs is a TV series he did on Hulu with Nick Offerman and the actress that plays the kind of alien clone in Annihilation. Really, really, really solid. But before that, really all he had was Ex Machina and then Dread. And he was also credited as a writer on 28 Days Later. And he's supposedly the guy that came up with the idea of the fast rage zombie. So really creative guy. I saw this in theaters and I dragged my girlfriend to go see it. She had no idea what it was. I really didn't know much about it. I kind of try to stay away from trailers. But we got to see it in theaters, and it was just such a great mix of horror and sci-fi and existential dread and, almost like the undoing of a person's psyche through choices that they've made in their past, that it's one of these movies that I can come back to over and over again. And I bought it on Blu-ray. I played it until the point where the disc doesn't work anymore. I've lent it out to so many people. So I upgraded it. I got it on 4K and I watched it for this just in preparation. And it's like, as soon as I put the movie on, it's like revisiting with an old friend, and you get all these rush of emotions and the really cool set pieces. And it's just a fantastic movie that I don't think it gets a good amount of due, but I don't think it gets enough due still.
Yeah, I think that I remember watching a trailer for this months before it was set to release, and it kind of died in the marketing aspect, I think, because I remember seeing the trailer and then not hearing a word about it even when it opened. So I never ended up seeing it until we watched it for this
Yeah, I think
show.
there was production issues with the distribution. So
Yeah.
I lived in Europe at the time. I watched it on Netflix
Oh, really?
when it came out. Yeah, and I did really enjoy it, but it didn't stick with me too much.
Sure.
And this time I think I enjoyed it a lot more.
Nice.
It is just visually captures you,
Uh-huh.
and it is just so gorgeous to look at, even if you're not listening to anything they're saying, which I've seen criticism for the dialogue. So
Yeah, I think
I don't know, there's a lot to like here.
I think Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is easy to poke at and be like, well, she's kind of a limp noodle throughout the whole thing. Her personality is anywhere between a 1 and a 2 on the energy level, throughout the whole movie. But I think that's kind of by design, and she's almost like a jaded character she's already past that point in her life. She's facing a death, impending doom through what you're led to believe is a cancer, and then also the mental toll of sending countless people into the shimmer to never return. So I didn't really like her character at first either. I've come to appreciate it a little bit more, but I still feel like that's probably the weak link of the group. As much of a great actress as I like as JJ is, JJL.
Actually, for me, I think Tessa Thompson was like the worst. I just really didn't like her acting in this. And I like love her in like her new Project Passing. Like that's a really, really good one. But in this, she kind of drew away from the character, in my opinion. She's very flat. I don't know if anyone else experienced that.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard that take on it before. I can see it. I have a question for you. What country were you in when it was released?
That was in Portugal.
Portugal. Yeah, I heard stories that it was released in theaters in America and on Netflix worldwide the same day, which I thought was wild. And after I looked into it a little bit, the studio essentially told them, my understanding, this is just a hearsay, but I heard that Alex Garland would not budge on the ending with the clone alien, and so essentially the studio said, we'll let you do it that way, but your budget's cut in half, which means all advertising is gone. You're losing a lot of the production set. So I'm curious if there would have been, I feel like the movie really could have benefited from like one really solid set piece. They have the fantastic, the alligator. They got the pool scene with the worms on the inside of the stomach. There's the bear, obviously, the crazy bear on the inside of the house, and then the alien at the end. Those are like some really fantastic set pieces, but I feel like it could use maybe one more, and maybe that was a detriment to the budget being cut. So I mean, it's hard to say, but yeah, I like it as is.
For it to be that ending, it would have to cut the budget because the production, or like part of the production crew, got really scared about it, from what I can tell.
Oh, really?
Because they did screenings. They didn't get scared physically. They got scared of the reaction. Of the people.
The financial success.
And they said, you need to make a better ending. And he wouldn't, which honestly, it's a perfect ending.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think that he could have ended it a better way, to be honest.
It's so iconic. I mean, that's what I remember the most from the movie.
Which part of the ending do you recall the most?
Well, I'm talking about like the mimic, right?
The mimic, yeah.
Yeah, that leads up to, we're not sure if it's her, if it's part her, or if she got assimilated a little.
Yeah.
That part's cool too, but the mimic is really, really cool looking.
Yeah, it's one of those endings where you're like, how did anybody let them do that? In a world of movies that like holds your hand throughout the entire storytelling process, you get to the end and you're like, what the hell is this? What is this dancing shimmer creature, oil slick mimic? And there's moments of that are a little terrifying, and there's definitely the moment underneath the lighthouse in that weird cave that Jennifer Jason Leigh is experiencing her annihilation, which is second of all, the other reason why I love this movie is I have a soft spot for movies that say the name of the movie in the movie, and this is by far the best version of that. She's got this whole soliloquy leading up to it. She's in the alien dungeon cave below the lighthouse, and she says her little thing about how your being will be split apart until all its remaining pieces are no longer relevant or whatever. And then she just says, big pause, annihilation, wow, 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 wow. And then she's peeled apart, and you're like, yes.
So good.
Yes,
So
that was
good.
really good.
Those final 15 minutes are so good and so scary too.
Yeah, I'd say there's like this was surprisingly scary to me because I knew that it was kind of a thriller, psychological kind of horror film,
Yeah.
but there are moments in this film that like I genuinely felt scared for a minute,
Yeah.
especially like the first ever true, I guess, it's kind of a jump scare where Tessa Thompson's character gets yanked by the alligator. Like
Yeah.
that made me have heart palpitations for a
That's not the
second.
type of scare that really works for me. I thought when like the bear was whispering in Cass's voice, I
Yeah.
thought that was super creepy.
Yeah,
Like
that
that
was
would
also
have been
creepy.
it for me. I'd be done there and then. I
Yeah.
couldn't
Die of fright
couldn't even move past
instantly.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that set piece is fantastic. We did a story on our show about how that bear animatronic was for sale, was that going on auction, and at the same website was also auctioning off the lighthouse from the lighthouse, the actual lantern. And it was like wow, it's only $15,000. That seems, I mean, it's expensive, but it seems a little low for that. And then you look at it, and it's 14-foot tall, 9-foot across glass orb that you're like, what am I gonna? I mean, even if you wanted to buy it, what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
It's just a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Once you have it, it's just a lighthouse.
Oh, what's that in the backyard? Is that some sort of weird gazebo you have? No, it's a lighthouse. You wouldn't
It's
know.
from this movie.
Yeah, no big deal. But yeah, that bear set piece is genuinely haunting. Thinking about it,
Yeah, it's very scary, especially like if you're thinking about
just
those.
whispering help in someone else's voice. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Ugh. Are you the type of couple that listens to the movie loud? Do you have the volume up?
Me more than her, I guess.
Yeah.
We try to do subtitles for mostly everything as
Sure.
well. Just not miss on anything.
You're speaking my language. That's basically my household is 100% subtitled. And if I had my druthers, I would have the volume all the way up, bass knob turned up a little bit higher than you probably should have it, and just kind of bask in that horrifying groan of the human bear hybrid creature.
Yeah. The sound in this movie is like impeccable, not only in its like sound effects, like especially with the bear with Cass's voice, but also just the score I thought was
the mimic sounds.
Yeah, it was incredible. Just
so deep.
Anytime they were walking through the forest, it felt very like exploratory and like new, and then especially the ending with the mimic that just kind of,
I don't even know what those sounds was coming out of.
Yeah.
That has to be electronic.
Oh, the like wah, wah.
Yeah,
those ones. Yeah,
they sounded like they came from so deep inside of the thing. I don't know how to describe it. It was crazy.
It is, in that the music crew from that is Jeff Barrows and Ben Salisbury, who also partnered with Garland for Ex Machina. He also did Devs, and Ben Salisbury, I'm pretty sure, also did the music for Mr. Robot. I may be talking out my ass, but Ben Salisbury also did an alternate soundtrack for Dread that wasn't used, but then ultimately released it on Spotify. It's called Drok, Drokk, and it's a really solid album if you're into listening to like industrial grunge, like driving industrial grunge music. It's pretty interesting. But that the sound it's a really big part of this movie that makes it work in a big way. So I agree.
I think everything makes it work though. The sound with the visuals, with the story that they're trying to tell, which is very reminiscing of like Tarkovsky's Stalker, even though Garland says it is not.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that title.
It is a Russian film from the 70s that, 3 people go into this area that's kind of
devoid of life.
Yeah, and you're not allowed there because the area affects people and they don't know how it does it.
Yeah, they're not sure if it's alien or if it's radiation. They don't really know why this area is the way that it is.
Yeah, but they know it changes everyone's lives, and some people go crazy, and that's why it's reminiscing. But he was asked about it, and he said no.
That really sounds like Annihilation.
Yeah, it's not as like
it's not
action-packed or horror-ish. It's more of like a
poetic
piece,
drama. Yeah.
Sure, like an existential thinker.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
Much more like that. But yeah, I could see how that's kind of similar.
Yeah.
You
And also
know?
like 2001 A Space Odyssey has been mentioned.
Mm.
Even though you said you didn't see that at all.
I didn't really see 2001, but I did see I could see how it would be likened to Stalker.
Mhm.
I think that maybe that almost the fast travel sort of light speed travel in 2001, where it's got that wild colorful array just bombarding your senses, couldn't be likened to the end where the alien creature is imploding on itself before it creates the mimic.
Yeah.
That whole bit is just, you're just looking at it like someone was high when they wrote this.
Yeah.
And then when
I
they
agree.
animated it. But I had a question for you guys. So as far as the plot goes, Lena and Kane, they live together. You get these flashbacks of their life, and you see most of the time that they're spent together is in bed. There's a couple scenes of them reading books together on the couch, listening to that banger "Helplessly Hoping" by Crosby, Stills and Nash. And I want to say it's Crosby, Stills and Nash. I don't know, I might be wrong with that. Anyways, there's a scene when when Kane finally ships off to go to his next assignment, which is ultimately entering the Shimmer. And we had a discussion last night, Brianna and I, my girlfriend, and he says, "I do love you, Lena." And is that his moment where he's basically saying, "I know that you cheated on me, and I'm going off into this, and I may never come back"? Does he know at that moment? Is that, because that's how I interpreted it, but she didn't. She didn't agree with that.
I think that he definitely knows, and she knows that he knows. I think
Hmm.
she feels guilty about that.
I don't think she knows in that moment, like when he says that, but I think that is him saying that he knows and that this is probably going to be a suicide mission, because I think that they do kind of tell you that the people going into it at that point know that they're probably not going to come out, because I
Sure.
think when he goes in, I think they've been doing the expeditions for 2 years at that point.
Yeah, he's already.
So they have they have enough data saying that the likelihood of you coming out is not great.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's.
But you mentioned the flashbacks,
Mhm.
and I guess I'll step into that because that's probably my least favorite part.
Sure.
I think pacing wise, it would be so much more just interesting if it was just the zone that they're in, the Shimmer. I think just focusing on that could be better. Maybe not. I
Well,
mean,
I think it
it's a
would.
choice.
I think it would push the story better forward in like an action sort of sense, or like focusing on the strange things that are happening in the A story. The B story definitely is all these side characters. Lena being one of them. I mean, she's the main character, but her B story is that she's unfaithful to Kane. She's cheating with her colleague. And there's another flashback when she's actually like sleeping with her colleague. And afterwards she says, or he essentially tells her, why are you so guilty about this? He doesn't love you. We have a lot in common. Leave my wife out of this, blah, blah, blah. And he asks, you think that Kane knows? And she says, yes. I don't know if that's after Kane shipped off and she's just really is a scumbag and she's sleeping with this guy after her husband is shipped off to some unknown mission that she doesn't even know where he's going, or this is before and she definitely knows. Kane definitely knows. They both know, but they won't say it. So her B story is that she's beating herself up because, number one, Kane's gone. Kane disappeared. He's been gone for a year. She's written it off. She's painting over the walls, moving on with her life. And I think that ultimately her going into the Shimmer is almost like her penance. It's almost like her punishment for doing what she did. And
yeah.
I agree with that. 100%.
and every person that's in that mission too. Ventress is Jennifer Jason Leigh. She's almost paying for all the death that she caused by sending everybody in. And also she just has a morbid curiosity to learn what it is. And she doesn't care if she dies because she's going to be dying soon anyways. And every single person in that team has this story of death. Shepard, who's the one that gets ripped apart by the bear at the first. She had a daughter die, and she said the same. She said very clearly, right to the camera, like exposition wise, it's like two deaths. It's the death of my daughter and the death of someone who I once was. And she's no longer the happy-go-lucky person she was before when she had this sweet daughter. and she's gone into the shimmer knowing that most likely she probably won't come back, and that's fine with her. So I feel like the whole subplot of the movie, yeah, it's about this thing, and yeah, it's about the shimmer and this alien and all this stuff, but it's really about sadly, it's about a really bad breakup. And
Yeah.
when you go into a relationship, you merge two people into one, which is the song Helplessly Hoping. We're one alone, we're two together, we're three apart, we're four each other. That's the chorus. And you become one when you go into a relationship, and you become a very different person. Not a bad thing, but you become a different person. And then once it's ripped apart because of infidelity or what life or whatever it is, you're the same person you were before, but you're a whole nother person. It's like you have three versions of yourself: the self before the relationship, the self in the relationship, and the self after. And when they both come out of the shimmer and you're not sure who they are and they don't know who they are, that's just like coming out of a really bad breakup, and you're like starting your life over, and you're like, who the hell am I? You know?
Yeah.
It's very relatable in that. And I've been through it a number of times in my life. I was married at 18, divorced by 24. And it's almost like I look back at that now and I'm like, shit, I was a different person. I barely even remember that time in my life. I'm 35 now. And it was only 11 years ago when the divorce happened, but I feel like that was a lifetime ago. So it feels really relatable in that sense for the B story. So I like the flashbacks in that sense, but I agree. It deviates and pulls away from that like momentum that you get.
Yeah.
So I feel you.
Yeah.
I don't even disagree that the story that's being told is good. I just don't like the flashbacks themselves.
Sure.
Not the existence of what happened.
Yeah. I think that it's really hard to write in exposition to a story that doesn't feel clunky.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
One of my favorite exposition plots is number 2 is Paul Verhoeven. Every Paul Verhoeven movie that has a news story built in. It's just like Citizen Kane, but you got RoboCop and Starship Troopers, where they just do this news flash, and it's like, oh, that's cool. You get a little bit of slice of life from the world that the movie's set in, and also you get this exposition dump, which is cool. But the best one is the Austin Powers series. They have a character named Basil Exposition, and he gets the call from Basil, and you get this whole exposition dump, and Austin Powers is just going, yes, okay, Basil, yes, give us all the information, and then the story goes on. It's so funny, but yeah, I excuse bad exposition from time to time.
Yeah, because it is hard to.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it bad though.
It's not so bad. It's just you're right. It throws a wrench in the momentum.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say that when we were talking about how they're kind of punishing themselves by going into the shimmer, I really liked one of the lines where it's Jennifer Jason Leigh's character talking about how it's more along the lines of self-destruction,
not suicide.
Yeah.
Where they're not trying to kill themselves, but they are essentially ruining their lives by going in here because of a bad thing that they did in their past with, Lena. It's because she cheated on her husband in an otherwise that we know, good marriage.
Yeah.
You have Tessa Thompson's character that
she's a self-harm.
Yeah.
She's got just and
she's punishing
depression.
herself for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, every other character also is kind of self-punishing, and
self-destruction is the main theme of the.
And I like how they play into it's kind of coded into our cells as like a species, or as like a even like plants and other animals, they all have like a self-destruction for your cells, and it's only cancer cells that grow without stopping. So it was kind of interesting to see that on the parallels.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a biological level too, it's very true. I mean, look at any animal, including humans. There is a moment in your life when your life is less important than whatever it is. For most biological creatures, humans included, it's their children. You get to the point in an animal kingdom, and you literally will like sacrifice yourself for your progeny. And
Yeah.
in the human world, it's the same thing. It's like you spend 18 years of your life nurturing this thing that may or may not turn into an asshole one day, but hopefully they're going to be a good representation of your bloodline, and you're going to give literally everything you got in the blind hope that it's going to be move on the species or move on your family name or whatever. And so, I mean, there is a track record of self-destruction in the world. In this, I mean, I don't know. If you have the opportunity to meet a new life form face to face, do you allow the self-destruction to be factored into it? Like the people who want to explore Mars and it's a one-way ticket, is that something that your soul is able to disconnect and say, yeah, I know this is going to destroy myself, but Mars, baby, you know?
I
Yeah.
still wouldn't go, but
No, me neither. No, I like air
I
conditioning too
might
much.
go into the shimmer. The plants are pretty. I don't know if Mars has plants that pretty.
Mars looks like Arizona, so no. And I'm not talking Sedona. I'm talking about Glendale.
Yeah, but I really like the parallel between, like, because we were talking about how if you thought this was like an allegory for
cancer. Yeah.
just like in itself.
Well, I don't think it's an allegory in a sense that it's trying to teach you something. I think it's more just it is using the cancer, I don't know, the way it functions and putting it in a movie about people going into an alien zone that's slowly growing and slowly killing everything in it and transforming everything in it to something that it shouldn't be. That's the correlation to cancer, I would think.
And also, you have zero control over it. You're in the shimmer.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Once cancer starts, I mean, there's very little you can do to slow that. I mean, historically, fast forward 100 or rewind 100 years in the past, and there's literally nothing you can do.
Exactly.
But I also don't think it's a story about cancer bad. We know cancer is bad.
Yeah.
We're just exploiting this story using cancer as just a method of showing the growth.
Sure.
Yeah, because this alien species or this whatever entity it is taking parts of all of the cells that it finds and incorporating it into to make something new.
Yeah, it's like messing up the genetic code.
Yeah.
They mentioned it's like a prism that reflects itself. I don't know.
Reflects everything in its purview.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like that bit where Lena talks about the bruise on her arm, and she's like, I must have got hit by that crocodile or whatever, and you realize that that's the tattoo taking form that they all end up having at the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, you see her in the isolation room and she's got the tattoo, and then the movie flashes forward and she doesn't have the tattoo, so you kind of think, oh, maybe she went through some shit and now she's here with the thing, but she just absorbed it, and it's really neat. I like that idea, and it just makes that idea of that bare human creature capturing the fear in the final moments of Shepard just that much more terrifying. It's like,
but you mentioned her absorbing the tattoo, and I think that really relates to the ending where people don't know if it's her, if it's the mimic, if it's a mixture of both.
Yeah,
I think she is absorbing part of the shimmer into herself. It's still her, but she's very modified now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. It's on first watch, that's the first thing you think of is, oh, is she an alien or is she real? And it's like, that's yes, both. It's everything. It's all of it. You know, you lose that distinction at some point, which can feel like, just like we said before, I feel like I'm the same person I was 10 years ago, and I'm also a completely different person. Whether that's family trauma, life trauma, or just growing up over time, it's like you're not the same person at some point. And when you go through an experience like that, whether it's a real world existential alien drama, horror, or something else, no matter what, it's like life will change you to a different version of yourself that you've never seen before. So in that sense, the movie is super relatable. And
and I think that
Good.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I keep cutting you.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was just saying that, like, I think that they all are experiencing the change at different times too, because I think when I was watching it, I noticed that Gina Rodriguez's character had the tattoo when she was freaking out. She was questioning if they were all lying to her, if they were going to kill her, if she
Right.
needed to kill them.
When she loses it.
Yeah, she already had the tattoo, but I don't think Lena's had fully formed yet,
Yeah.
from my understanding. And then after all that happens, Tessa's character has the tattoo, and this is when she's accepting that she doesn't want to go out scared
Sure.
and afraid. She just wants to go peacefully and just let the shimmer take her. So they're all coming up with kind of different, or they're experiencing this incorporation in different ways, just like how you would experience these types of mind-boggling life changes in different ways. Like, different people are going to experience it differently.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it in terms of that. I always kind of thought of it as, well, this character makes sense for Tessa Thompson because she's a cutter. So maybe her slip into becoming a flower person is closer to a suicide than the other people. And I kind of thought of it like that. But you're right. I think that each personality would experience trauma in a different way and cope with it in a different way. So that's interesting. That's great. I like that.
I think that's what gives these, I guess, side characters any validity to being in this movie. Because besides their deaths and their freakouts, they're kind of just throwaway, and we know they're gonna die.
Yeah.
Because that's how the story starts. So we don't have any doubt that we gotta accept their deaths. And I don't really feel bad for any of them. I don't know if I'm supposed to.
I didn't.
Maybe
You're not alone. Everybody just was there for whatever was going to happen, and it happened.
Yeah.
I think if anything, I was probably felt bad for Kane the most. And I don't really have a reason why. Maybe it's just because he's taking the brunt of the infidelity, and and it's almost like, bro, Oscar Isaac, you don't deserve that. Move on. You just break up with her. Move on. You don't have to go into the shimmer.
Yeah,
it's okay, man.
Don't kill yourself over it.
I know.
It's not worth it.
But that scene was just a great mind bend, which is funny because now we have Moon Knight. Have you guys been watching Moon Knight?
No.
Okay.
I haven't.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm not like a huge Marvel fan, and I don't think I've seen like the last 7 Marvel movies. But I'm an Oscar Isaac fan, so we watched the Moon Knight, and there's some crossover between Mr. Robot with the whole DID thing. But there's basically, he's a split personality type of superhero, so there's a lot of shots where he's on screen with himself in 2 different characters. And it's so funny rewatching it again after finishing the Moon Knight series. We're like, hey, look, there's Kane and other Kane, and in the thermite grenade or whatever. And that whole scene with the camcorder, ooh, that gives me the chills every time.
Yeah.
I think every scene with the like found footage style camcorder, those are all scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all very unsettling.
Especially like the intestines, which are not the intestines because there's something that's moving.
Yeah.
That was really creepy. And it's the found footage style helps it, even though it's a little oaky the way that they're pointing the flashlight. But besides that,
Sure.
I do enjoy all the camcorder segments, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you
fun. And I do.
Do you think that was practical? Do you think that was CGI with the snake worm things? We had a debate last night about this.
With the budget they had, it might have had to been practical.
The
budget wasn't that big.
To me, it felt practical. Like, I looked at it and I'm like, that feels just like some weird, I don't know, meat.
The way you put his
tubes.
hand inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was probably practical. Yeah.
I looked all over the place to try to find a behind the scenes of making that scene, and I couldn't find anything. So it's really hard to say, but that felt real. The practical or the CGI stuff felt like the mimic was definitely CGI. All the weird crystal trees on the beach were definitely CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the 2 identical deer with the flower horns or the flower antlers, those were definitely CGI. But everything else,
those look CGI too.
Yeah, and that the medium rate budget showed there, but even that, just that little world, all the little flourishes of the colorful fungi and the shimmery, all the reflections had a shimmer to it, like an oil slick look to it. It was a really great attention to detail. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the shimmer building was really great. I mean, there was no point where the background looked boring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
that's very
always
true.
interesting, always looking for stuff in it, which gives this more life, right? Because you can
Mm.
watch it again and find new things in the background.
Mhm.
The way that the plants grow different out of the same, or the flowers grow different out of the same plant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool elements, but they don't feel overwhelmingly cool. Where you're just like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
and forget about the story.
it's subtle enough to where it's not overwhelming. It's not like the Super Mario Brothers movie, where it's just
Mhm.
knocks you over the head with so much weird stuff. It's just like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's like just like what I know, but a little different. And
Mhm.
that's just got a little bit of a rainbow slick to it, or that thing is morphed in a weird way, or that the crocodile, it doesn't really look like that much different than a normal crocodile until it opens its mouth.
Yeah.
The color scheme is different. It's like a diseased albino crocodile until it opens its mouth and you see the rows of teeth in the inside. And you're like, ooh, what's that?
And it's also the slow buildup of weird things that are just slightly off that make you believe everything in the ending. Because you see a whole alien forming into being Natalie Portman and you don't question it because you saw the slow buildup of everything that was changing itself.
Yeah.
And you just accept that everything there is changed.
Yeah, the world building, I feel like, is one of Alex Garland's strong suits. And it's funny, Men is on its way.
Yeah.
Not this weekend, but next weekend is when Men releases, and that's Alex Garland's new release. So
Yeah, very excited.
yeah, we're gonna do a special episode just for that movie because we're all big fans of Alex Garland on the show, and we're gonna go see it in theaters. All three of us do a same day release. We call it a field trip episode where we all go to the theaters, do a field trip, and do a report on what the movie is and if it's worth your time or not. So I'm really excited. I'm interested because it doesn't seem like there's any supernatural components to Men,
Right.
but we'll see.
I haven't looked too deeply into it, but I have seen it, and it's getting the same amount of praise that all of his stuff usually does.
Oh, really?
With film critics and people that are into movies. I do understand that his movies with just people that just stumble into that movie because it's in theaters,
Sure.
they might kind of hate it, but
That's true. That's fair.
yeah.
Ex Machina.
I think if
is
you went into Annihilation and
Yeah.
you just watch Annihilation thinking it's a horror sci-fi, you're gonna hate it.
Yeah, I think it's probably a coin flip whether you're going to enjoy it or not. And
Yeah, maybe.
it's you're taking a big risk. I mean, I still haven't seen a trailer for Annihilation. I haven't seen a trailer for Men. I'm not. I just kind of stay away. I've been too many times. I've been bit by the hype train where I'm like, ooh yeah, demonic Neil Blomkamp coming to theaters. Can't wait. And then I watch it and I'm like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like Chappie better.
I think from what I remember, because I watched this trailer back when this came out, I guess, or a few months before it came out. And I think it really did play into it being more of a horror movie, which I mean it is kind of, but
Sure.
it's not.
It's a very scary horror movie, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like over the top scary that's
No.
going to make you.
It's not jump scares.
It's not a slasher. It's not ultra gory.
No.
But you're right. The bear is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, and the sounds are
Yes,
just
so scary.
yeah. There's like a kind of an ongoing. I don't know if it's a joke, but the reality is that most audiences can accept a movie with subpar visuals if the audio is good. The other way doesn't work. If the audio is bad and the visuals are great, most people are like, "This is terrible." With that bear scene, the sounds are so creepy. So
And the ending too. The bear scene and the ending scene with the mimic really got to me, and those both play heavily with sound.
yeah,
So it makes sense. The
Yeah.
sound is very important. I don't think people realize that.
it really is. It's way more important than like the casual viewer will give it credit for. If you've ever produced anything, it's so important. And last night when we were rewatching this, the scene with the intestines and the worms or whatever it is, you have that kind of ethereal chorus of voices, like on a low humming, singing song sort of thing that's just really eerie, almost like The Witch. Robert Eggers' The Witch has that like chorus of voices, and underneath that is that low rumble that just makes you feel that something dreadful is happening. And the second they close the laptop or I guess it's a laptop, or is it a camcorder? It's a camcorder
I
they're
think it's
watching
a
on.
laptop, the first one.
Yeah, I think the laptop is first, the camcorder is second, but
And then the camcorder
they
second.
close it, and you don't even realize how intense that sound is until the laptop closes and you're left with a completely silent living room or theater that you're watching it in. And it's it's weird. I mean, I have a pretty loud subwoofer in my sound system, so the couch was like rumbling. I didn't even realize it until it stops, and I'm like, "Ooh, I can feel my body stopped."
I'm pretty sure even our cat got scared by some of the noises.
Yeah.
The cat was looking around when there's the rumbling of the mimic.
Yeah.
God, that's such a great scene. Such a great scene. I mean, the whole movie. It's if your listeners are hearing this and they haven't been sold already, because I feel like we made point after point after point, prescient point to figure out this is the movie to go watch. And if they haven't figured that out already, how many new directors do you know that are making legitimately quality stuff time after time? Because you can have a one-hit wonder, and then you can have someone like Robert Eggers or Alex Garland, who's doing project after project after project that's just A+, very, very quality stuff. And it's not going to hit for everybody, but it's hard to deny that Annihilation is a layered, scary movie that doesn't really stick to one genre. Kind of like I don't know how you feel about The Lighthouse. I love The Lighthouse. It's one of my favorite movies the last 10 years, but that's a movie that bends so many genres, but you watch it and you're like, that's something. Somebody has a vision and they executed it, and it was fantastic. I feel like Ari Aster is in that category. Alex Garland, Robert Eggers, even like Julia Ducournau, who did Raw and Titane.
Yeah.
Whew, there's some great filmmakers now that are making some stuff that just like make my head spin. And Annihilation is not the ground floor of that, but pretty close to that. I mean, Ex Machina and then Annihilation.
Right. We watched The Northman.
Ooh.
And I as soon as I left, I was just telling her how much I feel like Robert Eggers gets better every time. Yeah. Maybe the movie's not better, but as a director, he's definitely better.
He's definitely growing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think The Northman hit probably middling for me as far as his catalog. I think it goes The Witch, then The Northman, and then The Lighthouse. And asked me a few years ago, I'd say The Witch was on the top of the category. I rewatched it after I saw The Lighthouse, or I'm sorry, after I saw The Northman, and it is very good, but the growth really shows, and that's that. The Northman's what an entertaining, weird movie.
I thought it was so entertaining, and I read reviews. People said they were bored, and I just got upset.
Yeah. It's kind of like, even if you don't like it, how did you not at least find it entertaining? Like,
and I would say it's my new favorite Robert Eggers. I do think he's getting better, and it's very obvious.
That's great,
and he makes great usage of his budget, and that really shows. And I'm very excited for him, for Ari Aster. I consider him my friend, even though I only asked him a question at a streaming once, but I will keep mentioning that.
Oh, really? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Better than me.
In the same theater when we watched Midsommar, so he was right in front of me.
You were in the theater watching Midsommar while Ari Aster was in the theater with you?
Yeah. It was a movie festival.
Oh my God. I am so jealous.
It was great. I know. I'll keep mentioning it.
Can I tell you a story about Ari Aster?
Yeah.
It's not about him, but about Hereditary. So the love of my life, Brianna, she's my girlfriend. We've been together 5 years. And she's a champ. She watches all of these movies with me, weird, obscure, whatever. And she has a thing about decapitation. She does not like it. It is one of those triggers that just gets under her skin and she can't handle it. And not knowing anything about Hereditary, we went and saw it in theaters with one of my co-hosts, Joseph, and his wife. And we drove there in two separate cars, me and Brianna, Joseph and Deanna, went to go see Hereditary after the decapitation scene, and then the close-up on the head with the ants crawling all over it and the mom grieving, Toni Collette grieving. She just leaned over to me and goes, "I'll see you at home. I gotta go." And she left the theater, never finished the movie. And
that's close to the beginning too. I
yeah,
feel.
it's pretty early on. So I leaned over to Joseph and said, I got to get a ride home with you.
I don't think we've ever had any experience like that, but the scene in The Northman when he puts the sword through the guy's face really like slowly, I had to turn my
I
head
thought it
as
was
we were
really
watching
cool.
Ooh, it was
You
rough.
could have done it. You could have done it fast, and
Yeah.
no one would
Yeah.
have questioned it. But he did it so slow, and I just thought it was
Yes.
so great.
it. Yeah, I had to like look away for a second. That was my like cringe factor. I don't
I
It-
think
like.
we watched Angst for my birthday, which is
Ah.
a Austrian serial killer movie, and it's very harsh.
I don't know that one.
And you hated it. I loved it. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. That's why I watched it on my birthday, even though it's super depressing.
It's super depressing and it's just makes you feel awful. And
It does.
It made me feel awful. I had to go lay down for a little while because it was so like
I mean,
Yeah,
it was
nah.
a lot.
what is a relationship if you don't subject your partner to trauma every now and then?
Right.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It just makes you stronger. Okay, so Angst, is this in 1983?
Yes.
Okay, so it's streaming on Tubi, Canopy, and Shudder. I'm adding it to my watch list now. I will report back when
That's
I
good.
watch it. I watched earlier in the year. I did a Depressed Fest. I called it the Depressed Fest. I watched Martyrs, Irreversible, and what was the other one? I think it was called and it was some French movie about home invasion in a farmhouse. It wasn't nearly as good.
Oh, it's Funny Games?
No, I love Funny Games. Funny Games is great.
Okay.
Brianna hates
Different
Funny
one.
Games. It was what was it called?
Funny Games is not French, it's Austrian or German.
It's German or Austrian, yeah, and then they remade it. The English version is actually really good.
Yeah, with the same director.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Haneke basically just remade it. I'm not a big fan of American remakes of foreign movies because usually they don't get the tone right. Like Old Boy, burn every copy of the American Old Boy to the ground. I love Josh Brolin's great. Spike Lee, that's great.
That was not a Spike Lee movie. That was they just needed a name.
Sure. No one needs to see that. Watch the original, please. Never, ever, ever. It's sacrilege. But the American Funny Games, Naomi Watts is a revelation. She's so good. Michael Payne's so good. What was it? I can't remember now, but Martyrs and Irreversible, that's enough in one day. And I watched a third really depressing one. So I will watch Angst for you.
Thank you.
Your favorite movie of
One
all
of his
time.
favorite.
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not.
It's just
Just
one of his.
In the top.
Yeah.
and the one he watches on his birthday. So,
Yeah. I hate myself.
yeah.
So let me ask you, what's your favorite movie that you watched on your birthday then?
Ooh. Well, we watched Repo Man
Yeah.
on my birthday this past year, which is a
The Jude Law
Alex
one?
Cox. No, it's Alex Cox. He directs it, and it has Emilio Estevez starring in it, and Harry Dean Staten.
Mhm.
Repo Man.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Repo Man. It's
Two
a very.
words.
It's kind of like a college, like. I guess he might have. It was like
Oh.
his college project, I guess.
1984.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Harry Dean
um,
Stanton, Tracy Walter, Emilio Estevez.
Yeah.
Directed by Alex Cox. Okay, yeah. Interesting. All right. And then I'm also going to add that to the list.
It's not crazy. I wouldn't say it's crazy good. It's just very nostalgic for me because I did
A remake.
a remake
Yeah.
of it when I was in high school.
Oh, you
like,
did?
an actual 30-minute long remake of it,
That's awesome.
and so I had to watch it a lot. So it's kind of a nostalgic. I love it, but not everybody loves it because it's not.
Have you talked about
It's
that?
not great.
Have you talked about it on the show in past episodes before?
I haven't talked about it on this one.
We haven't made an episode about it. You've mentioned it.
Yeah, I've
and
mentioned it before.
I was going to say,
but-
because I feel like
been,
you mentioned that on the show before.
We've
yeah,
been on your next favorite movie.
yeah, your
Okay.
next favorite movie.
Maybe-
And
maybe-
she did Repo Man.
Maybe that's, oh, you know what? I think that's, I listened to that episode on it. So shout out to Josh. What's up, Josh G?
Yeah.
yeah. I went
I-
on that one and talked
I
about that.
did
one.
Man Bites Dog with Josh. So
That is his
shout out
favorite
him
movie.
again.
Man,
yeah, it
that-
is my favorite movie.
Man Bites Dog. Interesting.
Mhm.
So I think if I had to pick my favorite movie, I'd be a toss up between Whiplash and There Will Be Blood. Both
Mm.
both a
On
little
the
depressing.
website, it does say There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
They haven't updated the website since last year.
It's I feel like at some point you have to just stop saying That's my favorite movie because
Yeah.
ask me tomorrow, it might be a different answer. But God, man,
Mine has never
Exactly.
changed, honestly.
Oh, really?
Since I've met him, it's been the same movie. For
Oh,
me, it's always changing because I have different moods. But
I just love Man by Dog. That's it.
yeah,
That's the one.
Gosh. Okay.
I
So
don't need others.
if I'm okay, it's what's today? Wednesday. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch a movie tonight, Wednesday night. Do I watch Man Bites Dog or do I watch Angst? Keep in mind, I have my girlfriend by my side.
Neither.
Okay.
they're both really hard to watch. I would say, like as a group.
Ooh, Man Bites
They're
Dog
both-
is streaming on HBO Max. Hey, it's on my watch
Damn.
list.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
I don't know who recommended this to me before, but it's been on my watch list for who knows how long. I have like 500 movies on my watch list.
Yeah, same. It's an issue.
I know it's a problem.
It just grows and goes nowhere.
At one point, I'm just gonna have to stop listening to movie podcasts because that's the main reason why it keeps growing so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Annihilation, right? Am I
Yes,
right?
That was good.
Annihilation.
That was
Ladies and
good.
gentlemen.
That's a good tangent. That's a good tangent.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna
right.
give it our ratings because
Okay.
we do that. You don't have to.
Sure,
you don't want
you go
to.
first. I'll follow.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really good, really beautiful. But as someone that's seen Stalker, and that's always a comparison that I'm gonna make in my mind. I love Stalker so much that this just doesn't reach that because it doesn't focus as much on the zone itself.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really nice and it's a really good rewatch too.
Yeah.
It gets better with time.
I agree. I give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's really good rewatchability. It's a really compelling story. Sometimes I feel like maybe the acting it falls a little flat sometimes, and there might be some scenes that are a little hokey for me, but overall I really think it's beautiful. It's beautifully shot.
Sounds
it's
great.
scary. It sounds great.
Yeah.
And just
It's very scary. I think that's something that's underrated about it.
yeah.
Yeah, you almost might be able to categorize this as a horror movie first, as sci-fi second.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go 9 out of 10. This is
Nice.
one of my top movies. I mean, I'm tempted to 5-star this thing because it's so good. But there are a couple things that you can take away from it. And if I were to pick a weak point of Garland, it would be that he lets it's almost like Yorgos Lanthimos, where he lets his characters just be really flat through a lot of the
Yeah.
movie. And
But it works for Lanthimos.
sure. I mean,
That's the comedy in his movies.
yeah. As soon as The Favorite came out, and it was I felt like he was a completely different director, but but everything else before that, you're like, wow, okay, well, guys, no emotion. I've never seen Colin Farrell so emotionless twice.
Yeah.
If you ever go down that road and watch Devs, it's a really high concept movie about string theory. So it's really weird, and it's Nick Offerman is doing some really cool stuff in it. But most of that movie, or the TV series, I'm sitting and watching it like, Jeff, where's the emotion? There's no emotion in the whole thing until you get to the final reveal, and it's like 5 episodes in, and you're like, okay, it was still worth the watch, I think, ultimately for the concept of it. But yeah, I hope that with Men we get some really strong performances from the leads. So
Devs is definitely on the Hulu watch list, and Man is going to be most likely watched in theaters. So
hell yeah,
very excited for its future.
cool. No, yeah, thanks for talking Annihilation with me. Anytime I can flap my
It's
gums
great.
about this movie, I'll do it.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
I think this was a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then everybody who's listening, if you're already listening from the normal Walk the Cinema listeners, you're gonna listen next week. If you're coming over from our feed to listen to me talk about this movie, which we've covered on our show, go to your search bar, go to your podcast subscriber service that you're looking at, click the plus sign, subscribe to the podcast. It's a great show.
All right. Thank you for being here. And I guess that's all.
Mhm.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. I'll see you on the Twitter sphere.